Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and you see that pickup truck that's backing in. It has an engine and transmission in it that the guy who sold it, well, the guy leading him back in there, his name is Steve, very good friend of my son Bruce, and he bought an old Chevy. And I described that and showed it in my fog video. If you've been following my channel, there's a picture of it there. And he got the truck for a really good buy, but it needed an engine and transmission. And so this guy, who's backed into the driveway, he had just exactly what Steve needed. He's got an engine and transmission in there. So this video is just basically showing how they unloaded it, and just because it's fun to watch these kind of things as far as I'm concerned. And then there's, as you will see as time goes by, straight down, there's kind of a round brown thing. I'll put an arrow to it. That's an old 1956 six-cylinder engine out of a pickup truck. And it's definitely an antique. And there's an old guy that came with him about my age, and here he comes walking over there, and he looked at that engine over and over again because he's seen them before in his life. So anyway, that's kind of fun. But also, this is an anniversary flight. 6 years ago on this date was the first day that I flew my Parrot Bebop 2 that had FPV, and I had never had a drone with FPV, or even with where you could see what was going on from the camera, on your phone. So 6 years ago today, I flew it for the first time, and I got involved in Parrot Bebop videos, and I put up a lot of tutorials on it and stuff. So anyway, so that's kind of a neat thing. But also, while they unload the truck, I've got a story, kind of a story to tell you. And I started my last video talking about some of the Christmas experiences I had as a child. And so I'll go ahead and continue. Last video, I was living in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and when I was 4 years old, my folks moved to a little house in a wooded area east of Renton, Washington. And, it was a little house. But my family had this tradition, which, I was old enough to remember it when I was 4 years old, that whenever at Christmas time, the kids were not allowed to go into where the Christmas tree was to see the gifts that Santa had left under the tree. We were all kept out of that room, and like we had to gather in a bedroom or a kitchen or something like that. And then usually we had family over, and so like my grandma and grandpa and my Aunt Janice and my Aunt Chloe. The oldest person led the line, and everybody had to stay in line behind them. And then the youngest child was last in line. And so we started that tradition way back when we lived there. And then we would get in and we would sit down, and somebody would open the Bible and read Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 20, I think it is, about when Jesus was born. And so that's kind of it was kind of a tradition. So we did that. Well, then around when I was 10 years old, there comes the tractor to lift the engine out of the back of the pickup truck. When I was 10 years old, my folks moved out of that little house, and they moved into Seattle, actually real close to the center of Seattle, in a neighborhood, and they moved into this old house. At that time, I think it was 70 years old when we moved into it, and it was the biggest house on the block. Might have been the first one built there. It was almost like a mansion, and but it was big enough because my grandma, my grandpa, my Aunt Chloe, and my Aunt Janice came to live with us, and by that time my folks had 4 children. So that made 10 people. And they all came to live with us in that big house. And so when Christmas came, my mom had all kinds of help from my aunt and my grandma to put up decorations and prepare and just kind of make a real Christmas spirit out of it. And so I can remember we always had a bowl of Christmas candy sitting out, that has the ribbon candy and all that kind of stuff. Always had that sitting out prior to Christmas. And then they had this wooden bowl that was, it was probably carved, but anyway, it was divided into 3 or 4 different sections, and then they would put nuts in that bowl, and then it also, the nutcracker and the pick to pick the nut part out of the walnuts and stuff, that was all there, and so people would sit down and break open a nut and eat it, as a kind of a Christmas time treat, I guess you'd say. So that was always there. And then they always decorated the tree all as far as you could decorate it. I mean, they had the tinsel on it and the light bulbs. And I remember we had these light bulbs similar to the ones that I described in my last video. And they had the real narrow bottom on them. And when you would plug them in, and then you had them sit upright so they kind of look like a candle. And then when they got warmed up, they would start whatever was inside of the little glass tube, it would start bubbling up, and it just looked like supposed to look like a flame coming up from a candle or something. Anyway, it was interesting. We always liked that. And then they had the Christmas tree bulbs, the ones made out of glass, and you had to be so careful with them, and the Christmas lights. And then they had the tinsel, icicle type stuff. They always put that on the tree. And sometimes they'd have a wreath of some kind that they put around it. And then there was always a star on the top. And so it was every Christmas. And by the way, back then they didn't have plastic Christmas trees. You had to go out and buy one somewhere or go cut your own. And so it was a real honest-to-goodness Christmas tree. And you had to keep the base that was sitting in, you had to keep putting water in it to keep the tree from drying out. And so... Anyway, so I'm moving the drone around because I wasn't able to see what was going on. So I thought maybe we better swing around over here. And that's the engine, and then you saw him take the transmission out and sit it there. So anyway, our Christmases were just full of glee, I guess you could say. The season was amplified with all the things that my family did, and then also they had fir stems and sitting on top of the fireplace mantle and just all that kind of stuff. And then and by the way, in the archway between the living room, which was large, and the dining room, which was large, they always hung a mistletoe. And so and back then, all they had was turntables and records, and so you didn't sit and listen to Christmas music all day. If you wanted to listen to it, you'd put the record on, and then 20 minutes later you turn it off or whatever. So that was the kind of Christmas. That's how they decorated the house where I grew up. From the time I was 10 till I think probably time till I was about 15 or so, and then they moved out of that house and moved into the area near the Seattle-Tacoma airport. But that house was really fancy. It had been made when it had a coal furnace, and so it was like very special to me, and I got a lot of good memories from it. It had 2 floors, and then there was a finished attic that had a floor in it. So you could go up into the attic and walk around up there just like they show in the old movies and stuff. So anyway, so there's the guys. They're driving off to go back home, and so they're happy that they sold their engine. And my son's friend is happy that he's got an engine. And they already put it in the shop and put it where they could start working on it. And so I got a picture of that. And so I just am thankful for my family that brought me up and gave me some really nice Christmas memories. And that's when I lived in Seattle. I'll have more stories about that house and our Christmases we had there as we get closer to Christmas. And I just want to encourage you to remember that Christmas is about the birth of Jesus. Jesus came to earth, lived a sinless life, and then paid the price for our sins on the cross. And then he not only did he die on the cross, but 3 days later he rose again. And when he rose again, that was proof that he was God. And if you haven't put your trust in him, I'll put a verse in the description about a verse that you can read and study out and know exactly what you need to do in order to put your trust in Jesus. And if you have any questions, don't worry about just send me an email or put it in the comment and I'll send you my email or whatever. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching my videos. There's a happy camper down there. And God bless.